News of the week continues with Abbotsford MLA Bruce Banman. A couple of things we definitely want to talk about. Let's get to the elephant in the room, Lonzo, the homeless camp. It has been moved. Where are we now? I know this has been a burr in your side with some of your social media posts. Yep. Where are we? And is this as bad or worse? And I'm thinking back to 2015. There was a camp, it was Essendine and Gladys by the MCC thrift store, not far from the Alano Club. That's where the CTV cameraman was pepper sprayed. That was Kevin McDonald, who lived in Abbotsford. That was pretty rough. I nearly had a near miss there. Is this worse, or was this worse?
Well, according to the police, and I live not far from there, so I drive by it all the time, according to the police, it was the most violent encampment that Abbotsford had. I would say it's probably the most violent encampment they'd ever had. It was bad. Yeah. And probably more importantly, as you saw, there was burnt out wreck after burnt out wreck after burnt out wreck. So they would catch on fire. And I was amazed that actually nobody perished in any of the fires because it would just go through there. So it was as bad as it gets. I had one individual say that it reminded them of a set off of Terminator. It was, there was, well, of course there would have been drug dealing, illegal, illicit drug dealing. There was weapons that were found. There was one fatality. The fire got so bad at one time it closed down the freeway. Something had to be done. And you have to remember that these are some of the most vulnerable people in our society that we're living like nobody should have to live like. Yeah. Everything you heard and probably more.
Now, these people have to go somewhere until this new facility is built. But you were mentioning in one of your social media posts about the numbers. When it finally crunches down, we're 10 units ahead or something like that? Now, is this a provincial cross-city, cross-federal thing?
No, well, so here's what's going to happen is that they're going to spend, I've read the numbers so far as $4 million to put in 40 units and they're temporary. So they're going to basically bring in, for the lack of an expression, they're going to bring some of them Surrey portables in, I guess. But they're going to bring in a portable type housing unit, right? And it's going to be 50. Hooray, 50 more units when you consider that the numbers in Abbotsford of homeless it depends on what you read, anywhere from 500 to 700. There was anywhere from, on a low end, 10 people living at Lonzo to 100, depending on the time of year and what you considered that to be. So 50, hey, fantastic. And then you find out, whoa, wait a minute. We're going to dismantle the current existing shelter that houses 40 on Riverside, which just is on the other side of the freeway.
Well, towards the Walmart.
No, the other way.
The other way, yeah.
So more towards south.
Right.
Just underneath the overpass, right. You're going along Riverside. And so they're going to bring in 50 for 18 months. They're going to dismantle the 40. And then rebuild it for 60, I think it is. Might be 64. So the really net that Abbotsford is going to get is only going to be 20 or 24 units. Yeah. And there is such a need. Why not do this the right way, which is find a better location, build the 50, and keep the 50, because I think it would be a better use of taxpayers' dollars, and make sure the important thing is that we have the wraparound support, because this just buying old hotels and housing them, or a warehouse, and the opposition gets a little fussy about that, but that's exactly what they did. Is they took a fruit packing house up in the Okanagan area and they used that for a while.
Oh, the Travel Lodge in Chilliwack's another good example.
Yeah, but at least it's not a warehouse. Yeah. You just plunk people in there with no support. This does not work. You have to have the wraparound support for this. Now, they have promised that there is going to be support here, and I plan on holding them accountable to that, because at the end of the day, there has to be a pathway to sobriety or getting off of drugs. Not all of them are hooked on that. Some are mentally ill, but there has to be that pathway so that people can lead productive lives again. We're losing now 7 people a day. Yep. something has to be done.
Shifting gears a little bit, when the talk of expanding Highway 1 to 6 lanes first came out, we first heard Annis Road, and then we heard Prest, and then we heard it's not going to be in Chilliwack. And then with Abbotsford, it's to Mount Lehman to the airport, and that's about it. Where are we now? Because I know the Bradner exchange, not Bradner, Glover Road, that's all coming together. But are we ever going to see 6 lanes out here throughout Abbotsford?
And you got to remember that, this thing was built back in 1962, and take a look at what the population in Chilliwack was. It's a fraction of what it is now. This thing is at capacity. I just drove here. Middle of the afternoon, it was bumper to bumper. Something needs to be done. When I was the mayor of Abbotsford, we had the province and the federal government had agreed to widen that to Watkin. And nothing's happening. There's lots of announcements. I mean, this government is good at announcements. And as I've said on social media, they just suck at actually getting the deliverables on the ground.
Yeah.
You can say the same thing about the Massey Bridge. That would have been built and opened already. We haven't even got to decent design yet, in my understanding, for the Massey Tunnel that is supposed to replace it. So, get the shovels in the ground and get it done. Because every time someone gets in their car, they have this frustration of not knowing if they're going to get to work on time or at all that day. It's not that difficult to figure this out. I read in the newspaper again that the 264th overpass, that interchange is now ranked in ICBC's top 5 or 10 places in British Columbia to have an accident.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is look at the skid marks on the freeway when you drive by. You can see it.
Transit, as we are taping this, we are still waiting. MLA Dan Coulter from Chilliwack last week on this set said we were expecting a report from Vince Reddy. Still waiting. That may change by the time we air. Have you heard anything, or are we going to get another extension, or is this dragging on? Last week, we passed the 100-day mark. Yeah. Correct me on this, we have either tied or exceeded now the length of time from the sea to sky.
Not quite.
We're getting there?
You're getting there with this government now has the honor of having number 1 and 2 longest bus strikes, I think, in the history of this province. Why they sat back, and I jumped on this one fairly early. If you go back to the ledge, right as soon as then I sort of said, hey, look, this is what happened in Sea to Sky. It is the longest bus history. And, I feel bad for the workers, because when a strike goes on that long, I don't think you ever really recover from that. It's just not possible. You're doing it for the next. But why they waited so long to bring in Vince Reddy, a mediator, is beyond me. That should have been done early on. This is not about interfering with someone's right to strike. This is about getting the wheels moving. Because even when I was down at Transit and talking with some of the workers, they agreed with me that who's really being hurt by this are people that need to go to school, people that need to go to a medical appointment, those that can't afford a car, especially with gas prices the way they are, we do have the highest prices in North America. Thank you very much, NDP. But why are we waiting? And there are tools that government can use to actually help move this along. And all that time was just waited, and I think this one's going to surpass the one to Sea to Sky. I hope I'm wrong, but I think we're probably at about day 108 or something like that. Yeah.
Rapid transit. We've heard about this one so many times. SkyTrain will go to Willowbrook. Will we ever see it go to Abbotsford, or is it a pipe dream?
Geez, I hope so. And you and I were talking about the history of my family's history. My grandmother, who used to take the interurban from Chilliwack into Vancouver to see her grandparents. Yeah. Now, there's much debate about that line. It's a very slow line, but I say let's plan it, let's start building it, and let's move it from station to station to station. Yet once again, announcements are great, but what about an actual plan with a timeline? And will it get to Chilliwack I hope it's in my lifetime and I get to see it.
Because we've had people like Rick Green and Bill Vanderzam on, and they've been pounding the fist, saying this has got to be done. And it seems to be there's a spurt of interest, and then it stops again. Am I wrong on this, or?
No, you're not wrong. And what I've said is if you take a look at the Fraser Valley, where the vast majority of the province actually lives in the Lower Mainland, if you take a look at it, okay, from Hope to Vancouver, and pardon me, I'm a dinosaur. I still think in miles, so it's 100 miles from Hope to Vancouver, and it's only about 15 miles wide. So unlike other cities, other regions, we're only moving people east and west. Don't tell me you can't figure out how to get this done. It's not rocket science. It's a lack of political will. And one of my passions, even when I was the mayor, and Diane Watts and I used to talk about this, is we have got to plan rapid transit up and down the valley. Give people a reason and a fair alternative to get out of their cars. They don't want to be stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic all the time. What they want is a system that works, that's quick. Other areas of the world have figured it out. Let's just get it built and have a plan, and then follow that plan and move it forward, and keep it away from the political games such as the bridge. Like when you're a mayor, you inherit decisions that former councils have done. Very rarely do you have a drastic change like that. Figure it out, plan it out. Don't leave it to the politicians to sort out where it goes. That's a bad idea. Leave it to engineers.
And this coming from the politicians.
Yeah. Leave it to those that understand how to move people back and forth. Leave it to the engineers. And everybody comes up with their own favorite plan. It ought to go up the middle of the freeway. It ought to go here. It ought to go there. Leave that to the experts and try to keep as much of the politics out of it as you possibly can. But just plan it and build it.
Bruce Banman, we will have more of these conversations in the future. Thank you so much for dropping by.
Well, I do appreciate it, and I look forward to it. And it's always good, for those that don't know, I was saying earlier, this is my old home stomping grounds in this area, and it's always good to come home.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
You're watching News of the Week.